Anything shift in your understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, why we're here and where we're going?
I think what shifted for me was the magnitude of the problem and how common it is in our world. So I've worked a lot at a species level, and that's because that's where the legislation protects and where you can actually act. But I think I hadn't expected. So when we're looking at a species, a koala or a Tasmanian devil, and we see the same problems playing out for species all around Australia, and it's the same threats impacting them. I think what I was a bit blown away about is that it's happening at an ecosystem level, and we're starting to think about that now. And that's even more, the scale of the problem in terms of human well-being is much bigger if we're talking about ecosystem collapsing, not just species going extinct, but whole ecosystems collapsing. And that, I think, for me, drives how much of an issue it is for human well-being.
Yeah.
Whereas, if the orange-bellied parrot went extinct, humans will be a little bit sad, but not everyone will. But if we lose entire kelp forests, or if we lose whole mountain ash forests, we lose our fresh water, we lose our marine resources. And so I think, for me, a take-home from the conference has been that everyone is seeing ecosystems collapse all over Australia, and even more broadly, and it happens really rapidly. People aren't surprised though, and so I think that tells us that we kind of know what the problems are, we just need to fix them.
Yeah.
So I have been involved in these kind of workshops and science think tanks for a long time. One of the things that I was really keen to ensure was that everybody had a voice and everybody felt comfortable using their voice. And one of the ways that we ensured that happened was we had diversity at the table, which is what you observed. And the way that we had to capture that diversity was to proactively try and create it. So we ensured that we invited early young people working in the space, and that we had enough young people so that they felt comfortable talking up. So my experience to date has been that when you're a junior person and you go into a room full of senior, experienced, credentialed people, you're quite scared to speak up because you think, I don't really know enough. But if you see other people around you speaking up, then you feel confident to also speak up. By design, we also ensured that we had a really good gender makeup. And so, again, in science, in the life sciences, it's a male-dominated field at senior levels. And we really need to actively try and change that. And people of different genders and different backgrounds have different approaches. And so in terms of coming up with solutions, I think having diversity at the table in gender, age, discipline, means that you make better decisions and you come to more creative and robust conclusions. So by design, we had to actively ensure that we had gender and younger people and older people. We wanted the wisdom, but we wanted the enthusiasm and innovation. So we ensured we had diversity to try and get that. So by listening to each other, and there was no turf warring in our conversation. It was just, I think this, I think this, I think this, and I think that. And feeling confident that you had a voice and you were being listened to, and then hearing all the voices, I think I was learning the whole time. And that was really exciting. And it's nice in that space to know that you're teaching other people. So you're not, you've got an audience, but you're learning, they're learning, and it's an exchange of knowledge, which is really exciting, I think.
How important do you think that is for people to witness the process, as well as the products that are going to come out of this?
Yeah, so it's not something I think about because I assume people understand the process, and obviously they don't. So I guess, it's important that people understand that we do exchange knowledge. It's not just, here's the facts, swallow it, deal with it. It's there are complex problems, and we get confused, and we have to nut out the complexities. But I think the solutions are often simple. Once you work out what the problem is, often it's pretty straightforward what you need to do, if that makes sense. And I think so for people to watch the process and understand how we exchange knowledge. So I think maybe for an observer at times it would have looked like we were in disagreement and we couldn't agree on something. But actually it's kind of part of the process. And science is that, I challenge you, prove it to me. It's where's the evidence? What do I do with that information? What do you do with that information? And do we have the same, do we both come up with the same outcome with the same data? And science is built currently on this sort of foundation of peer review, where I review as a peer what you're saying and I hold it up to scrutiny. And so that's probably a process that isn't apparent to people. So the thing about climate change is that 98% of scientists are actually in agreement that it's happening. We're not arguing that it's happening. We know it's happening. And I think that's why it's irritating when you work in this space that it's convenient for people to question, but they can't even agree on climate change. And the majority do, and that small minority are so left field and out there that it's not even relevant because they're so outside of the practice of science. The issues that we're dealing with we are still trying to work out terms and conditions. We all understand that ecosystems are at threat and are collapsing. And we kind of unpack the nuances of what, as it collapsed, is it irreversible? Can we still do something with this ecosystem? And I think at times in that process it might look like we're arguing, but really teasing out and getting down to the facts. A lot of it's also nested in definitions, and so I think one of the beauties of science is we understand about definitions. And so once we understand we're using the same language, then it really plays out as to what we're talking about. One of the really hard things as a scientist is the way that the non-scientific community interprets the language, and the message gets lost. And I think that's a challenge.
How important do you think it is for people in the arts and humanities to interact with scientists and listen to scientists?
I think it's...
And vice versa.
I think it's really important for people in the arts and humanities to interact with scientists because we struggle to get our message out, and our messages are really important. We are also trained to be data-driven, fact-driven, and to stay within the confines and within confidence boundaries. And we're also trained to be succinct and to get the point across in a very factual, it's an institutionalised, structured way we deliver information. So I think the beauty of working of people in humanities and arts listening to us is they can learn they can hear our message, but they can do much more creative and reach people in a different way than we do. I think scientists, when I talk to artists, or when artists come to me, or people in the humanities, I think what's a really good lesson for me is to just, what is my message, and what's the big message, not the detail, not the nuances, but what's the simplified version, to not saying that arts is simplistic, but if you're trying to communicate science in different forums or different spaces or mediums or different audiences, you really need to know what your message is. And so if you're talking to scientists all the time, you can kind of waffle on for ages and they understand what you're talking about. But if you're dealing with other disciplines in an interdisciplinary way, you need to be strong and understand what your message is. One of the reasons that scientists probably should interact more with artists is that it can be really rewarding. And it can be really exciting to watch another person's interpretation of what you study all the time. So I might study a plant, and I've been studying it for 10 years, and I think it's really beautiful. But I in my opinion, it's about the size of its leaves, its growth rate, how many seeds does it produce, and then to watch what that means, what that plant means to an artist. It can be something completely different, but equally as valuable and beautiful and valid.
Has an artist ever revealed to you aspects of your species to consider from a scientific point of view? Have they opened up new questions for you to ask as a scientist?
Yes.
Or have you ever looked at a plant from a perspective, a more subjective perspective perhaps?
Yeah.
That's opened up. I'm interested in the creative process of science. Yeah. I think this is part of it.
Yeah, so I often study species at a species level, and I look at the traits, you know, why does this plant grow here? And often when I am doing that, I think in a very science, rigorous, structured way. But then actually watching what artists can do, they can see at one plant, another plant, and actually draw them with the same leaf shape. But to me, one's from one genetic lineage and one's from another, and this one's a 1 million-year-old plant, and that one's only half a million. But the artist has seen similarities in shape and form, which to me informs, their function. So yes, and I also I think it's interesting with animals and sound. Like the sounds that I hear, I have a reaction to, but to watch what that sound can mean to someone who's an artist or a musician, and it's a completely different sound. And then also at a landscape scale, what I see in a landscape is incredibly different to what a lot of more creative, artistic people see. So I can often look at a landscape and I see invasion or destruction or, recovery of species, but I love seeing how it's interpreted by an artist, which can be completely different. I work in Antarctica, and not many people get to go to Antarctica. So it's really important to have artists and people to help us communicate to bring Antarctica to people. And often with species as well, tiny little species that no one really knows anything about. I can write a paper, I can do a bit of media, but if an artist can bring that species to life and reach a bigger audience, or ecosystem to life and bring that to a bigger audience, that's a really powerful thing. And that's why we need the interaction of arts and science.